next Earl of Highhurst, and the last one you'd expect.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks, Jefferson and Bryce. For those in the audience who haven't seen A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, it's amazing, but without asking you guys how to explain the plot of the show, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Bryce, can you explain who Jefferson plays from the perspective of your character, and Jefferson, explain who Bryce plays from the perspective of your character?
Jefferson plays each member of my family, each more despicable than the one prior, that I have to remove in order to become the Earl of Highhurst.
And Bryce is a conniving, insignificant, social climbing, self-aggrandizing upstart.
That's why I let him go
homicide
second.
In order to advance himself in the world. But no, it's essentially the story of a very nice middle-class boy from Clapham, London, in the year 1909, who finds that his late lamented mother was a British aristocrat from an illustrious family, and that he himself stands in line to inherit a great title and a vast fortune. And unfortunately, there are 8 pesky relatives that lie between him and achieving that title, and he has to kill them all, as nice as they may be. Yeah.
I always let Jefferson explain it, because he's always much more articulate than I am, but yeah, that's it.
Well, we spoke about 2 years ago. I liked how you explained it. You called it a mix between Downton Abbey, Sweeney Todd, and Gilbert and Sullivan, which I think are kind of really interesting, fun inspirations for the show. Can you talk about any fun inspirations you have for each of your characters that you play?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of Monty as the underdog. That's how I've always thought of him. That's how I've attached to him initially was, that clip we just watched, the last words of the first act are the last one you'd expect. And I think, I know I think we have some actors in the audience today. Feels like tonight to us, doesn't it? Yeah. Any actor can attach to being the underdog. I certainly could. And so, I don't know, I try to use that as much as possible to think about Monty as the last one you'd expect to end up at the top.
And my inspiration is drawn from just probably all the worst parts of myself, I think, magnified 8 times on stage. No, I actually drew, since it does come out of this tradition, this sort of British music hall, Gilbert and Sullivan tradition on one level, I drew from the sort of Ealing studio comedies of my childhood. And the great British character actors like Terry Thomas, Alec Guinness, Alistair Sims, and I just thought about all those wonderful movies that I would see growing up and sort of stole from them shamelessly.
Yeah, and Jefferson, you play 8 or 9 characters in the show?
Well, let's face fact, 9.
9 characters?
Yeah, it's a surprise.
And I mean, yeah, playing a lot of characters is something that you've done before with I Am My Own Wife and now doing A Gentleman's Guide. Do you have a specific process with preparing for each one? Is it different, or do you prepare for them as a whole? What's your process behind that?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the rehearsal process was an extraordinarily playful one. And we were just encouraged to try all sorts of different things. And I have a hat collection. And I sort of brought all my hats, literally to a read-through. And oddly enough, one hat was appropriate to each of the characters. And I borrowed some of my wife's hats. And then all the hats ended up in the show. Or a reasonable resemblance of them. I sort of work from the outside out, I guess.
The real hats are in the show?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really? Your own hats?
Yeah. Wow. No, I'm sorry. No, they're not. No, but replicas, or the exact same make of the hat that I have. Like
Is it hard for you to wear that hat now that you wear it in the show 8 times a week?
I beg your pardon?
Is it hard for you to wear those hats in daily life now that you wear them?
No, I'm wearing one right now. Yeah, I'm gonna have trouble with like the pith helmets and things. Though I don't think I'll ever be taken seriously.
What about you, Bryce? I mean, Monty, you've described him as the underdog, but he's also kind of the bad guy. He does go on a murdering spree of the Dysquith family, and I mean, you have some history playing bad guys on Broadway. You played Carl in Ghost the Musical. How do you approach playing the quote-unquote bad character in a musical?
Yeah, I always cringe when I hear the bad guy because I feel like that can be a limiting way to think about a character. I don't know. I try to try to empathize with them and their situation. With Carl and Ghost, he's the best friend who's in love with the woman he can never have, and his best friend is just a little bit better at everything than him. And so I try to approach the role from that starting point. And this role, I've tried to think of it the same way, as like, this is a guy who's been put in a situation he had no idea existed. And the next thing you know, he goes to the family for help once he learns that he's a member of this great family. And the first victim is a priest who turns him away, and he finds himself on the top of this tower with a priest who's nearly falling off, and he just decides to give him one little tiny wisp of air. Suggestion, yes. And that sort of sets him along on this path. Obviously, we're dealing with a farce here, so it's a little different. But you're right. I tried from day one to make Monty as likable as possible, because otherwise, he is the protagonist. If you don't like the protagonist, you're probably not going to want to stay engaged throughout the entire show. So, and that's the magic of this show, I think, is that they built a show where you root for a serial killer. It's only on Broadway is this possible.
It's also a nice throwback to like Gilbert and Sullivan, operetta, classic Broadway musicals. We have a lot of popular music on Broadway right now, and Gentleman's Guide kind of stands out in that respect. Do you have any favorite old school Broadway musicals that were inspirations for you as performers, or that you think about when you're performing a show like this on Broadway?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the one that just came to mind is one of the first ones I did growing up, which was Anything Goes, which was on Broadway revival a few years ago. But there's something about this music that is very, I would call it legit singing, that actually is a joy to sing. And truth be told, is a little easier to sing than some of the other pop genres that are on Broadway these days, which makes it easier for us. Not that it's easy, but to do 8 times a week. And I just love singing these songs.
It's a very unique sound, hearing these legit voices, for want of a better term. I mean, singing this glorious music. You don't hear it often these days. But I think the musicals that influenced me, I grew up with, just a couple of records. My parents had Mary Poppins, the movie, and My Fair Lady. So I listened to those, and Sweeney Todd, actually. And I listened to those, and they all kind of figure into this production, actually. I mean, I think the influences are clear. But I listened to those compulsively, and I loved My Fair Lady, and I want to do My Fair Lady. Again, I did it once up in Gonquit, and I just love that musical, because it's a great musical for a non-musical performer, such as myself, because you can sort of talk your way through it. The Henry Higgins role. So it was a wonderful introduction to singing. So now I'm learning. You
would describe yourself as a non-musical
performer?
Well,
no. I mean, this is my first Broadway musical.
Really?
This is my first serious foray into this genre, and it's been thrilling. And my respect for musical theater actors is extraordinary. I mean, it's overwhelming. They're Olympic athletes. I mean, doing a play, you can come to work sick, you can come to work hungover, and arguably do your best work. So have a sickness or being a bit buzzed from the night before.
That's right.
Makes you stand outside of yourself and of the play, and it sort of speaks through you. A musical, you cannot do that. It will pick you up and kick you and punch you and hurl you back into the wings. You have to be at the top of your game. And so even singing with a cold, as I've been doing recently, is a challenge that almost is too great.
Another first for you that you were mentioning backstage in the green room is that this is your first time doing a show on Broadway for 2 years, for such a long time. Yeah. How do you keep it up day after day doing a show this long on Broadway?
Well, Jefferson's right. I mean, it's an athletic event for us every night. And I just left and did a play for a while, and I've been back in the show a month now. And people said it would be like riding a bike. They didn't say it'd be like riding a bike in the Tour de France, because it really is. It becomes a whole different lifestyle, and every day becomes about 8 p.m. when the curtain goes up, or 7 on the early days. But to answer your question, I think the way we keep it fresh is that sort of streamlined concentration it takes to say these words and this show is like, Jefferson often says, a train that pulls out of the station, and if you're not on it when the train leaves, you can get, dragged behind or left behind. So once that first note, that conductor, starts us off, we're off to the races each night. Yeah, we keep it fresh by listening to the audience, but also trusting the work that we've done together, and it just takes intense concentration.
It really does, and it's kind of horrific how tenuous my hold on the material is. I mean, it can just go away, at any moment. But that is what keeps it fresh, because it's this machine. It's a Swiss watch, a train, as you said. And sometimes, as you say, the music starts and there's underscoring, so it goes on relentlessly, without you. If you have a momentary lapse of concentration, it's like being a cowboy, falling off his horse and being dragged by one stirrup through cactus and chaparral. It just goes on. And, God help you.
And both of you are on stage for almost the entire time. Bryce, you're on stage the entire time. And Jefferson, you play several characters, so you need to make some quick changes. Mm-hmm. But have there ever been times when the train has stalled in the station or any on-stage missteps?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, mercifully, through nothing really that we've done.
No, never our fault.
We've been blameless.
No.
But, mechanical mishaps. Curtains not going up when they should.
Remember the unruly
audience
patron?
member.
Yeah, we had an unruly patron one night. We
what
had to
happened?
Stop the show. There was somebody in the back who...
He came blundering through an alley and went in and he was I think off his face.
Yeah.
And then he started shouting and wrestling with the ushers and...
displeased with some other Broadway performance he'd seen,
he
not
just
ours,
walked out of something across the street. And but we suffered for it. But so we had to stop the show. The stage manager came out onto the stage, the ASM, Rachel, and that was weird because Bryce and I were singing and dancing.
In the middle of
a
song, yeah.
And then the stage manager appears, and it was just this violation of your reality.
Being pulled into another world.
Yes, I didn't know why she was there.
But I remember going out into we went to the stage door and went outside. It was during the winter, as I recall, and it was snowing. It was and Jefferson and I, for the only time, I think, had a break during Act 1. And I remember standing outside with you in the cold and just feeling like, oh, this is amazing to get a break in the middle of Act 1.
And then I went in and forgot all my lines.
So it is your fault sometimes. Yeah. What about those quick changes? I mean, you've said that your show off stage is almost as intense as your show on stage. How do you practice all those changes with the characters?
Yeah, well, we practiced a bit. They gave us half a day during tech, but there are all these lightning quick changes. I have 16 costume changes. So it's a wonder I have any skin left at all. But some of them happen, most of them happen at great speed in the dark, in which I run off stage from the light into the darkness and set on by like up to 4 muscular and determined people who rip my clothes off and then thrust me into a new outfit. And it's become a sort of ballet, and I wish someone would film it sometime because it's kind of nice. The music's going on, and we're doing this sort of choreography of hats, and mustaches, and wigs, and clothes coming off and going on. So it's I enjoy that very much.
It's
and
remarkable.
Sort of relax into it.
It's a remarkable sort of use of stage magic too. When you see him, the actor is playing all these characters. At a certain point in the show, it's going to be him. You see him disappear as one character, and then under 10 seconds later, he's back on as a different character, looking completely different. It's sort of like a magic trick. Sometimes I can't even play. I go, wait a second. He was just all right. It's really quite remarkable.
I think I read an article where you had said an anecdote about some audience member who was so impressed that all the people that played the dice with family members looked so much alike.
Yes, right.
It was impressive they could
My wife overheard that conversation, which is, simultaneously really gratifying and depressing.
Well, talk a little bit about that, because I think that was when the show was out of town. The show had a production at Hartford Stage and at La Jolla, and you've been with it every step of the way. How has the show changed since it's come to Broadway for you?
In very small ways. I think the show was quite strong to begin with. I mean, it received a number of workshops and readings. I've been involved with it since 2009, just doing the periodic sit-down around a table, reading it and singing it around the piano. So when we went into the first major production at Hartford, it was in pretty good shape, and it was essentially the same thing that you'll see at the Walter Kerr Theater. But as with anything, little details appear and new bits arise. So it's also been able to expand and grow in that length of time. And it was wonderful to have Bryce come on board and bring his distinct Bryceness.
Thank you. We had a different beginning there for a few a few shows of previews. We started where like
you were hanged.
Yeah, I was hanged in the beginning. Or I wasn't, but there was a dummy that looked like me that was hung, and then Monty Navarro woke up as if from a bad dream. And our creators were sitting in the audience for one of the previews, and that opening number happened, and the audience members in front of them, the wife turned to her husband and said, "I thought this was a comedy." And so they decided the next day to get rid of the hanging and started off on a lighter note, which we now do.
But keep all the other murders intact.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And Bryce, I mean, we spoke right before you joined the show for Broadway about 2 years ago, and I think something really interesting you said was that you had made a 5-year plan for your acting career when you graduated from Yale for your MFA, and you said if you could pick anyone to work with in 5 years, it would have been Jefferson Mays. What have you learned working with Jefferson these past 2 years?
Well, thank you for remembering that. Yeah, I basically said I devoted 5 years of my collegiate life to studying acting, 2 during my undergraduate when I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and the 3 years in grad school. So I said to myself, all right, I owe it to myself to not give up for another 5 years on the other side. And at the end of those 5 years, I'll take stock of where I'm at and how I'm doing, the lifestyle I've created or that's been created for me, and do I enjoy it enough to keep doing it? And I think 5 years was, right before we started. And you're right, on top of my list was Mr. Jefferson Mays. Having seen him do I Am My Own Wife, I just knew that he was someone I wanted to emulate and work with. And I don't know, I'm still learning from Jefferson. If you haven't seen him in the show, you have to come see him. It's just one of the greatest performances that will ever be given in a musical. I find him transformative, and it's that sort of, like I said, it's not just the costume changes, it's Jefferson. When he comes back, he looks different to me, and I see a different character in front of me, and the distinction he uses in his vocal apparatus, and I mean, they sound and look and feel like different people that I'm interacting with, and like that is the subtle magic that all actors aspire to, which is like, how do I trick you? How do I make somebody else appear in front of you? And he's doing it with 8/9 people. So it's been one of the, if not the greatest joy of my early career to work with him.
What about in terms of milestones with the productions from both of you? Have there been any momentous events or momentous occasions you've gotten to celebrate together with the show over the course of its run?
Well, I mean, not to ill it in any way or convey a lack of hope or belief in it, but we were sort of surprised that, certainly surprised that we've been here this long. Yeah. And that because we both started out thinking, if we can just make it through Christmas, you know, and get some gifts under the tree before we're thrown out into 48th Street. That would be wonderful. But it has kept growing, and it's been enormously gratifying and a great surprise because it's an odd fish. You know, it's not your usual Broadway fare, and to have, a serial killer at the middle of it all, however charmingly, beautifully played by Bryce, it's an odd experience, and I'm so fiercely proud of it for that reason.
Yeah, I think we never saw any of the milestones coming. They just sort of showed up in the present moment because we were never sure. We were always sort of looking over our shoulder, like, when are they going to tell us we have to stop? And here we are. I mean, obviously, I don't think we'll ever forget the night of the Tony Awards. That was, something you just always dream about as a little kid, wanting to be up on that stage with the people who've put in the hard work to get you where you are. And I think my mom is fond of sending me the clip of us on the Tonys because of the smile I had on my face, that she just couldn't get enough of. And it just says how much work we put into something, and on a night like that, to have it recognized and rewarded among so many people we respect and admire is just like, it's incredible.
What about any fun backstage secrets? Like Jefferson, what's something no one knows about Bryce? And Bryce, the same question for Jefferson.
Well, yeah, perhaps it's not a secret, but it's something fun. Jefferson is fond of every day before the show, or every half hour before the show, he comes and visits everyone's dressing room. It's part of his routine. He comes and says hi and makes sure he sort of checks in with everybody in the company, which is just, I just find that amazing. And you know, sort of a throwback to when the theater was just a place to be and be as a family and spend time. You know, today I think actors, sometimes we swoop in and swoop out, and whereas Jefferson's there before anybody else.
I sleep there, actually.
And you can tell he really loves being there, and just the backstage, what happens backstage is just as important to him and you know, to all of us really, as to what happens on stage at this point, because on stage is not the same every night, but it's close to. So backstage and the interaction with the audience before and afterwards is like, for me at this point, it's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's true. And I remember that moment that we share backstage in Act 2 before we re-enter into Highhurst. Where, I mean, one night we were just standing there together saying, isn't this wonderful? I mean, just watching our fellow company members acting and moving around the stage in their beautiful costumes in the light, and we were standing in the dark. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous to relate, but it was just a moment of such distilled beauty, and you have these very fleeting moments for us, but moments backstage of seeing a fresh audience sitting there on that special night, and the play going on, and you just sort of watch it all unfold and happen, and there's something ancient and beautiful and just heartbreaking about it. Because it'll never happen again. I mean, that's the beauty of theater, and it enables us to do it every night, because this is a one-off event. Every time you do the show, you do it 8 times a week, but every night is its own event. It will never happen again. Those people will never be in the room again with us. This will never happen again. And it's gorgeous in its ephemerality.
See what I mean?
And I mean, this opportunity will never happen again. So now we're going to take some questions from the audience for people to ask you their thoughts.
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
Well,
Excellent.
This question's for Bryce.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the Heidi Chronicles and how it was working with Jason Biggs and Elizabeth Moss?
Sure. Yeah, the Heidi Chronicles are played by Wendy Wasserstein that I took a short hiatus from Gentleman's Guide to go do with some fabulous actors, Elizabeth Moss and Jason Biggs. It was an excellent experience for me, you know, to get to sort of stretch some different acting muscles than are used in a musical. And gosh, I had a great time. It was a beautiful play, an important play to bring back to Broadway, an important voice to bring back to Broadway. You know, the leading character played by a female director, female playwright. That was something I felt was super important, something I wanted to be a part of, which is why I justified taking a leave of absence from Gentleman's Guide to do it. And it was a beautiful part, Peter Patrone, that as soon as I read it, I said, yeah, I think I have to do this. That's sort of how you know as an actor. When you read something, you get those butterflies show up, you kind of go, well, I guess it's exciting and scared. Excited and scared, to use Little Red's lyrics from Into the Woods. You sort of have to do it, and that was what that project was for me.
Mr. Mays, sir, whenever I see you, you're always dressed marvelously in early 20th century clothes. Whether you're leaving the theater stage door, where most actors wear baseball caps and T-shirts, you emerge as you are today. And if you're sitting at Brooke Astor's memorial service, I imagine you. That's right. I imagine you must have known her when she was a little girl.
Yes.
And I imagine that at home you wear a nightcap, and really.
Yes, I do actually. Yeah. It's a tarbouche actually. Yeah.
And really might prefer a chamber pot. And I'm wondering, when did this begin? When you were climbing up to your high chair when you were 3?
In my christening dress.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always loved old clothes, and I had the good fortune of having grandfathers and a father who had lots of fabulous. Like my grandfather had a sleeping suit made out of black silk. No, it was a smoking suit made out of black silk and embroidered with Russian bears. And so I used to put that on when I came home from school. And they just had marvelous clothes and lots of hats, opera hats and things. And so I coveted these things and sort of kept them in my own closet when they bequeathed them to me. And I think being an actor, too, you're just in love with costumes. That is the most exciting moment for me, even more than a first read-through, is that first costume fitting, where you get to shake hands with your character and put on this transformative garb. And I literally get the shakes. It's so exciting for me that my hands are a tremble. So I love the clothes and the costumes. And I also just like dressing up to go to the theater, because it is such an event, and it's kind of my church.
Hi. With Patty taking away someone's cell phone in the audience, what are your crazy cell phone stories?
They've been marvelously well behaved.
Yeah, we haven't
We haven't had a Patty LaPone moment, you know.
The phones are interesting, though, aren't they? I mean, it's sort of like it really is one of the issues that has come up recently in the theater is how to deal with cell phones, because we see them all the time. You know, I think there's some people who maybe haven't been to the theater a lot, who are coming to a Broadway show for the first time, don't always remember that we can see them, right? Just because we're up here pretending we can't, we can. And we especially when there's a warm or not so warm glow coming from the phone on your face, we can see exactly who it is that's on the phone. You know, so no, I don't think we've had too many interactions. But I was playing Horatio in Hamlet in college, and I remember, you know, as Hamlet is dying in my arms, and of course, the next line I have is this famous line. The rest is silence, right? And Hamlet says, the rest is silence. And the next line I have is, good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. So Hamlet's dying in my arms, and he goes, the rest is silence. Bring. You know, somebody's phone goes off.
Did it get a laugh?
I think it did, yeah.
Oh,
It was college after all. So, so yeah, that might be maybe my best cell phone story to date.
I love that story. I think it was Sondheim. It was at his own musical. I forget which one it was. And a woman actually answered a call and said, you know, I'm at the theater. And then the next word out of her mouth was, eh.
Hey guys,
Hi.
As an actor, I just want to hear just how exciting it was to work with the director, that amazing magician himself, Darko Tresnak, and his peculiar and particular take and what he gave you guys to work with.
Well, Darko, if you know him, has a very quirky and dark sense of humor that is perfectly fit for our show, and was you know, sort of fond of stepping in certain moments. He would step in for me and say, "Can I play you? Can I play you?" And you know, would suddenly be bounding across the stage and trying out different things. And some of the stuff he came up with turned out to be, you know, even too dark for this show about murder. So very energetic, extremely generous, and I thought, for me, being someone who hadn't done the show before this incarnation, he did a wonderful job of protecting the actors from a lot of the outside voices that were interested in ultimately helping. But at the early stages of the process, it's nice just to have one voice talking to you rather than the numerous voices that could be saying, you know, what about this? What about this? What about this? As long as he was sort of a clearinghouse for all ideas, which really helped me sort of stay calm and focused, which is what a smart director does, I think.
Yeah, I do think it takes a former Yugoslavian to direct Americans in a British sort of farce. But he's a singular man, Darko Tresnak, a great visual eye, a great artist, and extremely playful and extremely dark. And it's wonderful you brought that up, because he loves to play, particularly the women. He would love to give his Sabella and,
yes.
and
suddenly
Phoebe,
I'd find Darko as my Sabella.
Yes, I know.
Hello.
You're like dipping Darko. And but a great trick with Darko that you realized almost immediately is to watch him, like during rehearsal breaks, doing your role. like trying to figure things out, because you can, sort of get inside his mind and mine a great number of things from watching him at play.
This is going to be our last question.
Hi.
So my question is, are there any teachers that stand out from either before you started your training as actors or while you were studying that really stand out as inspirations for you?
Yeah, teachers are very important, and along the way, there's always somebody who has to tell you you belong in the room. And so I always think of the, people along the way who had to remind me or had to calm me down and say, "Don't worry, you belong in the room." The one I'll mention here is Ron Van Loo, who was head of acting at NYU for a while, and then moved to the Yale School of Drama, where I went to graduate school and taught there for a while, and was very good at saying that in his own way to each different actor. "You belong in the room. Now let's go to work." And one of my favorite things that he ever gave me was fear, or nerves, is just excitement without breath. And so I use that still to this day on Tony night. I remember thinking, all right, I'm pretty scared here. I have to go out and perform on the Tonys. But actually, if you take a second and relax, you'll realize, and take a breath, you realize I'm actually just really excited about it. And that's okay. And you should be excited. So, teachers are super important. And to any teachers here today, keep doing what you're doing, because it means the world to young actors. And Ron Van Loo is my answer.
Absolutely. And all my teachers are so important. But I do think about my first teachers, my parents, and being read aloud to as a child. I mean, I think that's theater in its most essential form. A cracking good story, someone reading it to you, and a rapt audience. And my parents would take turns reading to me, or passing a novel, a family novel, around the dinner table after dinner. And my mother would inhabit each of the characters. This woman, who was so familiar to me, would transform. Her face would change. It terrified me sometimes to see her become Miss Havisham or Uriah Heep and Ebenezer Scrooge, or one of the ghosts from Christmas Carol. And my father had this beautiful, detached, narrative voice. And so I guess, in many ways, I've been just trying to combine the two, the protean nature of my mother in performance, and then the great storyteller that was my father.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming today, and thank you, Jefferson and Bryce, for joining us.
Such a pleasure.
And go see Gentleman's Guide.
Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.